What's up everyone, Colby Cheese here with a video that will probably help very many of you in Dark Souls 2 when leveling up. Now, it can actually be quite obscure what the stats actually do for you, what the attributes do for you, and at which levels they actually fall off. Some of them have higher bonuses depending on which level you actually are in that particular attribute. So let's just go through it real fast. And I don't want to make this video too long. I just want to give it packed full of information that will help you to understand those attributes. Let's start off by talking about the Vigor attribute, just going at the top and moving our way down. Vigor is going to affect your entire amount of HP. You can actually have a max possible HP of 2505 with all of the right stats put together. Now, the way it works is for the first 20 points you spend, you're going to gain 30 HP per point. After that, until level 50, you get 20, and then after 50, you're only gaining 5. So those are your soft breakpoints. 20 is where I usually get my Vigor until the rest of my stats are where I want them, and then I'll move them up as close to 50 as I can once I start heading towards like level 150. Now the next thing that you're going to see is Endurance. Endurance is important as it affects your entire stamina pool. In other words, the green bar that affects rolling, the amount of attacks you can do, the amount of blocks that you can do, very important stat. But essentially, its breakpoint is at level 20 or 20 points spent, because for each point up to that, you get 2. After that, you only gain 1. Now, the interesting thing about Endurance is that the lower of Endurance and Adaptability will actually raise your poise of around 1-to-1 ratio, somewhere in that. So let's go ahead and talk about Adaptability for a moment. It's actually a very controversial stat. It does a little bit to a lot of different things. It gives you at higher amounts, it will lower your flask drinking time by around half a second. It raises your dodge timing, which is very important. You can raise your shield faster. Some people say that it actually makes you shoot your bow faster. That's a maybe. And of course, it raises various resistances. The main thing to note is that the first 10 points, you don't get very much of a bonus from it. After that, you gain, for every 10 points, around 7 to 8 more agility bonus. And so it can be a pretty big deal, and I've noticed it is quite useful, in fact. Next up is Vitality, which is going to affect your equipment load. This is what you need to spec into if you want to wear heavy armor. Vitality's breakpoint is after 30, so spend as much as you want into it, but after 30 you're not going to be getting as much of a benefit. So that's where I would stop if I were you. Now, moving on into the next one, we're going to talk about attunement for a second. So attunement does a couple things. It actually raises your casting speed, but it also gives you more slots for actually having spells to cast. So it basically goes like this. You get one at 10, another at 13, 16, 20, 25, and then 30. Pretty much after 30 is when it starts to slow down dramatically. That's its real breaking point. And so you're going to be spending 10 per point after 30. So soft cap at 20, another hard cap at 30, and that's pretty much where you want to stay. Now, the next couple of stats are actually pretty much all lumped together here. I'm going to talk about Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence, and Faith all as one, because they all are very similar. Other than allowing you to equip certain items by having the required stat that is associated with it. Strength, for example, will modify the scaling on strength-based weapons, but it also adds a little bit of defense to your setup. Dexterity will add extra damage to dex-based scaling, but it also adds poison and bleed bonus. Whenever you level up Intelligence, you're going to increase your fire damage, as well as magic, of course. And then your Faith will actually up your lightning damage. Now, the cool interaction between Faith and Intelligence is that the lower of the two will actually modify your dark damage. So that's pretty much for hexes and stuff like that. One more thing to note about when you're wielding weapons, if you two-hand a sword, it will actually double your strength. So you actually have less requirements, as well as the fact that the scaling is a little bit more. Now, dual wielding, and if you want to go into the power stance, which is where you actually have a special attack with 2 weapons at once, you actually need 1.5 times the required amount of stats. So that's just a little side note for you. But as far as the fall off for damage on these stats. It's actually very interesting because they all have kind of a mediocre amount of scaling up until 30, but between 30 and 40 you get the most massive bonus on the damage scaling from these stats. After that, you have a pretty big fall off after 40, and it just kind of goes steady up until the very last level at 99. So the idea here is always take your stat up to level up to 40 points, the stat that you're going to be using for your character, whether that's strength based, dex based, intelligence, or faith, or whatever that may be. Take that up to 40 because that is going to be the level at which you see the most benefit. But that's all for now. Thank you guys. Hopefully you learned a lot from watching this video, and I'll see you around for the next one. Make sure to subscribe to see more. I'm Colby Cheese. Peace out, guys.